So here's where we are right now. The Detroit Pistons are having their best season in almost 2 decades. Sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference, everything finally clicking, and then you get hit with this. Cade Cunningham, your franchise guy, your engine, your all-NBA level leader, diagnosed with a collapsed lung. And not only is it shocking, it's the kind of injury that completely changes the conversation overnight. Because when fans first hear collapsed lung, the reaction is immediate panic. And honestly, that's fair. I get it. That was my first reaction when I saw the ESPN alert. This isn't a basketball injury we hear about often. This isn't a twisted ankle where you tape it up and you play through it. This is something internal, something that directly affects breathing, conditioning, stamina, everything you need to function at a high level in the NBA. And even though doctors are calling it mild, it's still serious enough that the team immediately ruled him out and said he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Which means at a minimum, he's missing time right now when the season is winding down. And so now let's slow this down and really talk about what that timeline means, because this is where things get tricky. 2 weeks is not a return timeline, folks. It's a checkpoint. It just means they're going to look at him again and see how that lung is healing. Now, historically, when NBA players deal with this kind of injury, the real recovery window tends to fall somewhere between 3 and 8 weeks, sometimes shorter if everything goes perfectly, sometimes longer if there are complications or caution is required. And I think that's why initial news was it's going to be an extended time. But here's why that matters. The NBA playoffs start April 18th. So now you're looking at a situation where Cunningham is sitting right on the edge of that timeline. Now, there is optimism that he could be back by the start of the playoffs, but it's not guaranteed, not at all. They're not going to risk him like that. I mean, the kind of player that Cade is for the Pistons, you have to understand, if he's on the bubble, they're not going to play him. There's no point in risking it at that point. So now the entire conversation around the Pistons season becomes a waiting game. Not about matchups, not about seeding, not about momentum. It's about one question. When does Cade Cunningham come back? And what version of him are you getting? Because let's be very clear about something. This team goes as he goes. This isn't just about losing a good player. This is losing the identity of the team. He is averaging around 24.5 points, nearly 10 assists, and over 5 rebounds a game, putting him in rare company historically. And it's not just the numbers, it's how those numbers come. He's the primary ball handler, the late game decision maker, the guy who controls tempo, the guy who settles everything down when things get tight. He is quite literally the system for the Pistons. And when you remove that player, everything changes. Now, to Detroit's credit, they've shown they can survive in short bursts without him. They have. They've won games without him this season. They've got depth. They've got young talent. They've got energy. But surviving in March is not the same as winning in May. Because playoff basketball is a different sport. In the playoffs, defenses lock in. Possessions slow down. Every weakness is exposed. And more than anything, you need a guy who can create offense when nothing is working. You need a player who can get you a bucket when the plays break down, when the shot clock is winding down, when the crowd is tense. That guy is Cade Cunningham. Without him, the Pistons go from being a team with a superstar creator to a team that has to rely on ball movement and system offense. And again, that can work in the regular season. But in a 7-game series against elite teams, that's a completely different challenge. And let's talk about those teams for a second, because the Eastern Conference is not forgiving this year. You've got the Celtics, who have playoff experience and multiple closers. You've got the Cavs, who are deep and disciplined. The Bucks, who still have championship DNA. Those teams are built for playoff basketball right now. They have guys who have been there before, who know how to execute under pressure. Detroit's new to this stage. That's why Cunningham is so important, not just for what he does statistically, but for what he represents emotionally and mentally for that team. Even the betting markets reacted immediately to this news, with Detroit's odd to win the Eastern Conference dropping significantly the moment the injury was reported. That tells you how the outside world views this. Without Cade, this team is not the same threat. And so now let's walk through what this means for their playoff chances depending on how this plays out. If he comes back right at the start of the playoffs and looks close to himself, then Detroit is still dangerous. Maybe not the favorite anymore, but still a team that can make a run. They've got the record, they've got the confidence, they've built something real this season. If he comes back but he's limited, maybe he's not in full condition, maybe he's easing into game minutes, that's where things get complicated because now you're asking him to ramp up in the middle of a playoff series, and that's incredibly difficult, especially with a lung issue where conditioning is everything. And then obviously the nightmare scenario that none of us are wanting to happen, but it could happen, would be that if he's not back at all, or he misses a significant portion of the playoffs, then you're looking at a team that's probably taking a major step back. Still competitive, still tough, but not a true contender to come out of the East. I mean, that ship would sail at that point. And that's the brutal part of this whole situation is the timing. Because everything was finally lining up for the Pistons, best record in the East, a legitimate MVP level season from Cunningham, a team that had gone from rebuilding to contending faster than anybody expected. And now, weeks before the playoffs, everything is uncertain. That's what makes this such a gut punch. And the final piece of this is that it's the conditioning. And I don't think it's been talked about enough. Even if he does come back, even if he is cleared, even if the lung is healed, there's still the question of stamina. Can he handle 35 to 40 minutes in a playoff game when he's been out for weeks? Can he maintain that level of play over a 7-game series? It's not something you can simulate. I mean, if he sits out for 2 months or more, it's a concern. You develop that by playing. So as we sit here today, this entire season for the Detroit Pistons hangs in the balance of a medical timeline that nobody can fully predict, 2 weeks until reevaluation, hopefully we get good news, possibly 3 to 8 weeks total recovery, depending, and a playoff start date that's coming fast. And that's where this story is. Not just the injury, but the uncertainty. Because if Cade Cunningham is healthy, then this team has a real shot still this season to do something special. But if he's not, then everything changes. Keep it locked. We're going to cover this story. We're going to see what happens to Cade. Keep it locked. You're listening to Midnight Sports Detroit.